Well, here we go down into the shop again. As you can see, some of the stuff that was stacked outside the basement door there has been cleaned up now. Although in the process of doing that, I've also piled a bunch more wood and stuff here from the shop. Out in the rec room proper, there's been a little bit of a change out here. I picked up a Festool table recently, so that's going to be going into the shop, along with a MFT Capex table that's coming. The two of those I think are going to fit on the other side of the table saw and the router table. Out here also is the router jig I have from Rockler. I also have a Porter cable and a lead jig. The Rockler jig I'm getting ready to put up on eBay, so if you're interested you can look for it up there. There's also a couple of vices here for saws when I do the saw sharpening. I picked up a new Gramercy saw vise, and that's in the shop now, and that's the one I'm going to be using, so I figured I'd go ahead and resell the other ones. Most of the rest of the stuff out here is pretty much where it was. There is a new box from Lee Hansen, the manager at Woodcraft down in Leesburg. This box is a tool box. It's from one of his grandparents, I believe, and we're going to start using that for the hand tool classes. I have to make a tray to put inside it. Can't get into it right now because I got a bunch of junk piled on top of it, but I will be getting to that soon. My chip carving stuff is sitting on the sofa from a class I just recently had and got back from. And there's still quite a pile of stuff out here that needs to be picked up and put away. I haven't done much on this other side. Still, the spoke shave and stuff's out here. A bunch of 2x that were from in the shop I still haven't put back in the shop. It's way dark back in the corner there. That's the storage and stuff that came out of the shop, of course. There is a piece of wood out here that's marked. It's the mantle. It's going to my niece. So I've started work on getting the lumber and stuff together for that. It's going to have a French cleat on the back to hang it on the wall. Since they have to hang it without me, since I'm not there, it'll be kind of interesting to see how that goes down. All right, in the shop, not a lot has changed in here. The top that I was making for the sharpening stand, I decided not to use it for the sharpening stand. I'm going to use it for a frame, or a forgot what the term was. It's a higher workbench for doing more of the framing tool type stuff on top of it. We'll see how that goes. It's for joinery and stuff. It's up higher, so it's a little easier to work on. All of the tools are still hanging flat on boards. The saws are mounted straight out, so they take up a little less space on the wall, and that's pretty much something I'm going to do with the rest of the tools, is set up a cabinet on this wall that allows me to compress a lot more tools into a much finer space. You can see the hand planes and stuff have all been mounted up in the hand plane cabinet that I've been hanging on the wall for a while. They all have socks and stuff on to help and protect and stuff and all. We've got the panel storage is still sitting over here. I think that's pretty much the same pile I showed last time. The carving chest is still sitting there. The air compressor and all the clamps are still up on the wall where I had them. I didn't realign them yet. Still got that bare spot on the wall over there by the bandsaw. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do for storage there. If you watched the last show, you'll see that I was going to replace the base for the joiner. That's been done, and that new base that's on there is working really well compared to the old one, so I'm pretty happy with that at this point. Over on the workbench, that's a bench on bench. I had that up there for some joinery I did recently. I still haven't put it back down on the floor. One of the other projects I'm working on is laying here. This is something called a Unity cross. It'll have a walnut frame cross around the outside, and then the center portion's out of holly, and that's going to be shaped down with carving knives next. And the whole thing gets mounted on top of a little box. It's for a wedding of a young man across the parking lot across the neighborhood here. I hear that's coming up in the next couple of months. Over on the other side where we looked at before, we have all that storage, and yep, still got plans to compress all that stuff into a better storage area. My toolbox is sitting up on the other side of the workbench. Eventually I'd like to have that over behind my workbench on that wall so that it's easier to get at the tools from the toolbox and I don't have to go back and forth between hanging them all the time. The table saw is still set up over here. Everything seems to be working okay on it. We've got the router table with this end. There's a lot of stuff piled on it right now. I'm still moving some stuff around in here. The pieces of wood that are out here are parts that are going to be part of a new chest of drawers for one of my daughters. So I'm going to be putting that together hopefully in the next month or so, but right now I'm just moving the planks around. The lathe, the pen decorator lathe that's up on the site, this is the box with the pieces parts in it. I brought it down because I need to start doing some more work down in the shop. When I run it up in my office, it makes quite a mess, so I don't want to have it sitting down here or sitting up there when I'm running it. That work's getting ready to kick in. The corner with the lathe is still over there. One of the bags that's on the far end of the lathe is actually a project that I need to turn. Hopefully that's going to happen in the next month or so also, if things lighten up. I had the Festool out, so it's been getting some work. I ordered some new bases for the Festool boxes that were stacked early before, so it makes moving those around down here a little easier, I guess. I really like my stuff up on wheels. Not the least of which is the sanding equipment. I think I showed that last time, but what I've done since then is I've hooked them all up to the dust collection. I've got blast gates on each one of these now, and I have them all directly into the dust collector with the drum sander that's here. Having all those consolidated into a single area like that hopefully is going to keep some of the dust and fumes down. The sharpening bench I was mentioning earlier is over here. I unfortunately have it stacked up behind, or a bunch of stuff stacked on it. It's a little hard to see. It's got a white oak top on it instead of the cherry top. The white oak idea was from Tom Fidgen, and it basically has to do with the fact that there's a lot of moisture that gets put on the top. White oak is pretty good about that. There's a granite piece. It's a 9 by 12 piece of granite right over here that's embedded flush with the surface. Gives me a nice solid flat area on the surface to use as reference. And there's a little tool tray on the back of it, along with that Gramercy saw vise I mentioned earlier. I'll have that mounted through some embedded screw holes on the front, so I can clip it right on the front and just use this to stabilize it. I replaced my other grinder with a Rikon grinder and put it up on another stand. And when I fire this thing up by itself, it does not walk across the floor. It runs real smooth, so I'm really happy with the results I got out of it. And I think that's about it from the workshop. The scroll saw, I did fire it up, and unfortunately when it's on the stand that it's mounted on now, it actually takes off across the floor by itself, so I'll have to find another solution for that before too long. Back in the back is the storage. It's always been there, and there's that Porter cable jig. That's the one I use in the class along with 2 of the routers, so I just keep those on shelves back there. The other jig that I use for dovetails when I'm using the router jig is the lead jig, and that's still out here on the floor. At any rate, that's what's going on down here, so hopefully I'll make some significant changes between now and next month, and if not, the video will be a lot shorter then. Thanks go out to Penultimate Workshop again. I see that as a wonderful, wonderful idea. He started posting all his videos as a motivational means for making changes in his system. That seems to work for him, and I'm finding it's starting to work for me, so I'll try to keep it up. Thanks to everybody. Have a good week.